Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. Two McMaster University graduates are behind a new docuseries that premieres today on Bell Fibe TV1. Hidden Horrors includes deeply personal stories from Hamilton residents, and it will also be shown at the Westdale Theatre on April 26th. Co-creators Cassidy, Lawson, and Shauna Halbersma from Sage Sky Productions join us on Newsmakers to talk about it. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is very exciting. Tell us about Hidden Horrors.
Yeah, well, it is a docuseries, and we follow the stories of 5 women, how they want it to be told. The series is really unique because it has no host on it, so we've let the woman kind of interview with us, go for 2 or 3 hours where we're speaking and piece together 15-minute segments where we show reenactments, we show documents, photos, and then have a really nice collection of their stories.
Yeah, and this is deeply sensitive material that we're talking about.
Yeah, so the show follows these 5 women and their stories, but they're not just like regular everyday stories. It's not just about their lives. It's about these women went through deeply traumatic experiences between domestic violence, healthcare system, homelessness, all those things. We cover a whole spectrum of different kinds of traumas that these women have gone through, and then brought them in and let them narrate it pretty much. So, and we wanted to make sure that when we describe this show, we kind of say, you know, like, think true crime, but on the opposite side. We're not looking at who's committing the crimes, we're looking at who's being affected, because that's who really matters in that story.
So Cassidy, why was this subject matter chosen?
Oh, well, originally we put up a bunch of flyers for the show, and we were aiming for everyday horrors, maybe a little bit about if you had a bad boss, if you had a bad experience with a neighbor.
Something paranormal happened to you, spooky.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And just as the submissions came in and as we talked to the women that we ended up recruiting for the show, we looked at each other and we were just like, we can't go forward with this. We have to go on a deeper path. So we collected this amazing collection of women that wanted to share their stories, and then we pitched Bell Fibe with this really sensitive subject matter. And honestly, it's been such a beautiful creation, I think. And I think that it's really important that we chose the subject matter also because being in Hamilton and being locals in Hamilton, you don't hear these stories. It's the first time we heard several of them, and we'd be listening to someone in our episode and be like, that happened right down the street from our student house we lived in.
Yeah, it took a completely different path than where we had originally started, and when we decided that we were going to go down this other path, we really wanted to make sure we were also leaning into what it was, which is women survivors' stories, right? And as young women that live in Hamilton, these are things that would directly affect us and things that are important for the community to know, because these stories, they sound like something out of a horror movie. But they are real, and they happened right here.
And that's the real impact, because these are real women, like this happened to them, and they're survivors, and they're willing to tell their story too.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that process like? In, you know, you're making this call out, and you're getting these stories in, and these women want to relive maybe the most difficult times of their lives.
Yeah, when we were doing this, we were running around Hamilton. We were putting up printed flyers like downtown, Dundas, Westdale, with a QR code basically saying, if you have a story, we want to hear it. And as we were getting the submissions in, we'd go through and we'd pick some that sound like we could make a segment about this. It doesn't seem like a one-sentence story. We did 1 round of Zoom interviews with them, and then we picked a couple that we liked, and we had a second call where we'd go through and describe what the show would look like. And at the moment, it hadn't been greenlit, so it'd been a really big leap of faith for them to trust us and sign on with a letter basically saying, if this gets picked up, we want to share. It was a really big leap of faith, especially when they've never met us in person before. But we'd go through, and most importantly, what we wanted to check is that these women were in a good place, where they weren't actively going through a crisis situation, and where they'd moved past it, processed it, and now we're in a safe space to share that. And that's not to say not telling these stories wouldn't be kind of triggering, but that's also why our set was so important to us. When Shauna and I were recruiting for the set, we made sure that everyone on it, except for we had one individual, our director of photography, everyone was female. So we wanted to take care of the participants both in front and behind the camera as we were rolling, and then as we moved to the reenactments, we made sure to talk with them about things that might have been off limits to talk about. We let them really have the lead in terms of what they wanted to share and worked with them on it as more of a collaborative process.
Yeah. So, Shauna, take us behind the camera. You're there, you're watching this in, real time happen as they're kind of reenacting or retelling their story. What was that like?
It was very emotional, both to feel, but also for them, right? So I'm sitting behind the camera, I'm watching, and it's like their emotions are so strong. You can feel how strongly and how deeply they've been affected by their experience, that I'm feeling it. I'm looking around at the crew as we're filming, right? We're all sitting very still, very quiet, but you can see we had crew members and myself tearing up. It was hard. And before every interview, we would even have to go to the crew and just say, hey, they knew what it was coming onto the project, but we would have to go to them for every individual interview and just give them a rundown. Hey, this is the type of content you're going to be hearing today. If you need to excuse yourself before we start rolling, just feel free to step out. You don't need to, unless they were part of the actual operating team. They were able to step out if they needed to be there. So it was very interesting, but it was also amazing to watch these women go through this range of emotions where they get there and they're excited and they're ready, and then we get into the meat of the story, and that's when you can see it all hit them again, right? You can see them going through these emotions again.
It's also
but then you then see them come back at the end. You see that they come back at the end and you can see them kind of hit that realization again of no, I survived that, and that was amazing.
Yeah, and I also I'm so lucky to have Shauna as part of our co-director, co-producer duo right here, because I'm thinking as she's going through this and she's talking with the crew in the headset as they're recording, I was sitting up there interviewing the participants, so I'm completely detached from whatever's going on behind us. And I think that dynamic helped us so much while filming, where I could laser focus on the ladies in front of us and make sure they felt absorbed and it was just a conversation, and then Shauna was running the show. While she was doing all the interviewing, I was on the headset with all of our crew, especially our camera operators and our director of photography, essentially making sure that, because we had 2 different cameras going, so essentially what I was doing was sitting there and making sure that we were capturing everything that we needed to in terms of camera movement and in terms of how the episode was going to cut together. So Cassidy's having this conversation with them, and I'm sitting there, I'm making notes about this is where I want to make sure we reenact this. I want to make sure this gets included in the episode, right? So it was definitely a more removed scenario and situation, but it was really cool to see how it worked on both sides, and how we, she'd get up there and she'd be like, all right, are you ready? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm ready, but I'm all the way back there.
Now, if you were to do this again, and we can talk about this a little later on the podcast, would you switch roles just to see what the other one kind of went through?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. I think I had the post-production part of the process, and because of that, it is really helpful for me to be behind the monitor and have that removal in a way, right? Cassidy focuses a lot on the pre-production. So once we get to the filming part, to have her be that person there, she's been the one that's been talking to them the most. At that point, she's had the most contact. We've obviously both met them and both been in the meetings, but in terms of emails and everything, she's been who their main point of contact is, that she's who they're comfortable with, right? And then once we're done filming and we go to the editing process, it's really important for me to be able to look at what we filmed and say, I remember exactly this is the part that I wanted, right? I could see it that way.
And then when also then, that was the very heavy part of filming. And then when we got to the reenactments, the vibe on set was a complete 180.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah, we knew the subject matter we were dealing with was heavy, but then it turned into, instead of an interview, it turned into a regular film set. We had some crew members, we were teaching them how to do cartwheels. We were running through the sets. We had this one crazy day where we did one take of each scene in each room, and our director of photography was running around with a steady cam the entire day for 12 hours.
Wearing a steady cam.
Yeah, and the vibe was just completely different, and that we were just so collaborative on that I think that we both really utilize our strengths, because like Shauna said, I do the pre-production, I hire the crew, I find the rentals, we kind of put the vision together, and then by that time that happens and I'm so absorbed in the process, I can step back and go, okay, okay, Shauna has this.
Yeah. It was also, we didn't have any of the participants on set with us for the reenactment portion of filming because obviously they weren't needed by that point. So, you know, we had actors and we had these people now stepping in to the characters of the participants, which was very interesting to watch them be able to kind of absorb that and be able to step into that story. But because we were dealing with such heavy subject matter in terms of what they were acting out, it was really important to us that we kept a positive vibe on set, because if we didn't, and every time we finished a scene we're like, all right, love that, let's move on, then like everyone's gonna get sad and everyone's gonna lose their energy for the day, right? And these women want these stories celebrated, so there's no reason for us to, obviously with sensitivity, but there's no reason for us to not have fun and enjoy what it is, which is bringing people together to create this film set that was a very positive environment.
I'll ask this of both of you. Were you able to shut it off when you went home? Or were you always thinking about that day and the heaviness of the stories that were being told?
I think every once in a while, it's like it ebbs and it flows. Like it comes back where I'm sitting there and we got an email like back being like, oh, you're gonna be interviewed for CHH, and we're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And we're like, oh yeah, it's about this show.
Like,
And it's just like you kind of go through this loop of we're so honored to be able to tell the stories. We have so much respect for these women. We understand the gravity of it, and then also the little girl inside you jumping up and down because you finally got to make a TV show. So a little bit of both.
I know. I don't think I felt the residual of it so much during the filming portion after we interviewed. Obviously, they were heavy days. I know we would get back and we would get home and we're like, wow, okay, like we're just exhausted, like emotionally. But I don't think that during the filming process I was feeling as much residual, but I think it was more during the editing process. I know I talked to you about this, that I felt it. I was doing the first cut of the episodes, and I was spending so much time watching now what we've filmed and putting it together and creating the story. And there was a point where I was like, I think I was working like 4 days straight on it, like every day I wake up, work on it, go to bed kind of thing. And by the last day I was having like some crazy dreams. I was like, wow, I need to like take a step back and like give myself a break, because like consciously I was like, oh, I'm fine, but then obviously subconsciously there was like, it was affecting me more. And I think that was when I kind of felt it, and we were like cutting through the transcription of the interviews even before we filmed the reenactments, and I remember we would sit there and we're like just kind of like remembering it, like we'd read a line and we're like, wow, that's crazy. There was stuff that we had to like look up because some of the stuff that happened to these women were words that we'd never heard before, and we're looking them up and we're sitting there, we're like, oh.
There's also like very important, you just brought up this like fantastic point, that we did these interview segments and then we waited I think a week or two before we transcribed. Then we put the stories together very slowly, making sure that we were like trying to stick true to what they said, but also cutting together 3 hours into 15 minutes is a task. So we sat through them, we did the transcriptions, and then we'd stop. Then we edited the video together. So giving ourselves breaks to be able to step away was really important with this kind of show, especially doing it with such a small crew and such a small, tight team, making sure that they had their breaks on set too. Like between interviews, we'd be like, okay guys, 15 minutes and just separate.
Just breathe. Just breathe, talk, relax. Do what you need to get back in a good headspace.
Was there a great amount of fact-checking the stories, or was it just about them telling their stories?
So we did ask participants for documents and supporting evidence of what happened in the stories, but we've also made it very clear that dealing with participants, and we've had some come on with like witnesses and special guests and people that we've pulled from the Hamilton community, or they've brought themselves to identify the key parts of the story. But we've also made it very clear when marketing this and with our disclaimers in the program that this is one person's perspective. So we always have to be careful that it is up to interpretation. These events happened 10, 20 years ago, so time changes, memory changes, and we do our best to stick to the scenario that happened and more their emotions that they were feeling during this and what they would say to other people to avoid getting into situations like this.
Have the individuals who are telling their stories, have they seen the final product yet?
They have. At this point, yes. They got sent out, I think, a week ago now, the final cuts, and we have so far gotten, they're very happy with what they have seen.
The response has been positive.
Yes. They have made it clear, like, you know, they're hard to watch because it's in a way reliving what happened to them, but so far what we've heard is that they're very grateful for how we've told their stories and how we did respect them, because it is easy to get in front of a camera, say whatever you want, and then, you know, the editing crew goes and mixes it all up and makes it something else, right? And we really wanted to make sure that that was not what they were getting back. They weren't getting something that wasn't them. They were getting exactly what they said, just shortened.
So this is a docuseries. It's premiering today on Bell Fibe TV1. It's going to be at the Westdale Theatre as well on April 26th. What kind of reaction do you think you're going to get from the general public?
That's a good question.
It's a big unknown, right?
I think it's going to be a mix. I think it's going to be, I'm hoping it'll be positive. Like right now, obviously we can only hope as now everything is starting to roll out. But I'm hoping it'll be positive and people will see that this is a positive thing. And again, although they are, like, especially at the premiere, although we were sitting and watching these episodes about women who went through horrible events, we are there to celebrate them and their triumph and their strength coming through that. We're not there to, you know, necessarily walk out. We don't want people walking out feeling sad. We want them walking out feeling hopeful, right? We have so far we have 3 of the participants that will be attending the premiere as well with us. And so, yeah, we just want to make sure that people aren't walking out being like, and having their view of that person changed, right? Like, that is a strong woman. That's what she is, and that's who she's going to stay.
That's what you want the takeaway to be.
Yeah, and I think with just all shows, like as a female-led company, and the show is very woman dominant, is that, you know, we expect maybe a little bit of discourse around it, especially because we're pulling stories from the dark into the light, and some people are going to have reactions that might not be the most positive, but for us I think it's just the fact that they need to get told, and we're okay with whatever comes our way. It's very common that women telling these kinds of stories get ridiculed, and, you know, they don't get the same amount of support that people maybe think that they do. And so it's very important for us that we stand true to, like, what we want this to represent, which is women's stories being told and not being put under the spotlight and not being, you know, picked apart to see if they should be believed. It's like, no, because that's not how this works. It was a little bit surprising, like, just in terms of when we were filming. Obviously, when you start the filming process, everyone's like very excited. They're like, oh, I have so many people that could come speak on this on my behalf. And then they hear, oh, this is going to be a TV series that is going to be broadcast. And then they're like, oh, I don't know actually if I want to get up there and speak on your behalf. Oh, I don't want to submit a statement on your behalf. And then so many of these women came alone because they thought they had people, then they dropped out the night before, or they would say, you know, I thought I'd have my family come with me, but then they don't want to be associated with this kind of story. So I think that's what's so important to us, is that we're beside the woman, and that our whole crew has had such a positive reaction to it. And I just can't even say the same. All the people coming to the premiere so far, I think, are people that I'd love to see these stories, and then the general public, we'll see.
I also want to make sure, like, these women are able to find community, if it's not in their own circles, with each other, right? And that's, in a way, part of our goal here, is letting these women know that they're not alone in their experiences, because oftentimes it can feel very isolating to go through that experience, deal with the trauma afterwards, and have people, you know, that don't want to be in your circle anymore. They don't want to be associated with you. So they feel very alone, and we want to make sure that we can show them that they're not alone. There are other people that have gone through, you know, other traumas that may not be exactly the same, but you've all experienced this trauma, you know, and how that makes us stronger.
That's important. Were any of them on set at the same time?
We did our best to keep the buffers there. However, there would be some cases where we were wrapping up, we're saying goodbye, and then another one would walk in. But I don't think they've actually met.
They haven't officially met, unless they did it outside. But
so April 26th will be the first time that at least 3 of them will be there consuming the final product.
And you know what? We've already had a participant or 2 reach out to us, be like, I'm so excited to see these other episodes. Like, I can't wait to see the whole thing. So I'm honestly really excited for it.
Now, you are co-creators in this. This is your baby. What are you feeling in terms of, you know, the final product and how it all came together? Excited, anxious, nervous? Like, what are the feelings?
It's really,
giddy, maybe?
It's kind of surreal. Honestly, at least for me. I don't know about you, but I know, like, it just feels crazy that it's gotten to this point. I woke up this morning, I turned on my TV, I said, oh my God, there it is. Like, that was just insane to me I can't quite wrap my head around it yet. We're, doing this interview. We did an interview with the Hamilton Spectator, right? These are all things that I don't think going into this, either of us expected to be doing, right? Or when we did, it was kind of just like a fantasy in a way.
Wouldn't it be cool if?
Yeah, right? We when we first started the show, we were like, we really want to premiere it at the Westdale. And we genuinely didn't think that we'd be able to afford it with our budget, because we were with a small budget.
Right.
And then we got to the end and we were like, we still have the money to do that?
Wow.
And now we're premiering at the Westdale.
And you know what? Like, this whole thing started because we were in a coffee shop and we just got back. We both went on like a different trip and we both sat down and we were like, it would be really cool if we did this idea. And then we were like, yeah, that'd be so cool. And then a week happened, it passed. And then I was like, so what if we did?
We actually
what
did.
if we did? And then, I don't know, it just kind of like has all like cascaded into this amazing thing. But then I'm still waking up, or in the middle of the afternoon, we're getting screaming texts back and forth being like, oh my God, can you believe it?
Yeah. I think giddy. I think is like we're excited to have our baby out there now, especially something that we are both so proud of. Like, we can walk away from this project and be like, yeah, that was awesome. Like, that was good.
And so where did the idea come from? Were you burgeoning filmmakers? Is this something you've always wanted to do? Or was it just like, hey, let's try something new?
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know, I kept having this recurring idea. I loved true crime shows, like, growing up, and watching docuseries like this was like Paranormal Survivor, or like Fear Thy Neighbor, and I saw them and I was like, that would be so cool, but what if we did like everyday stuff? And so then it was just an idea that came up while we were talking, and then again, it just kind of
we were literally just getting coffee, and she was like, I've been having this idea that like we could do this show, and I was like, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so and then it was like a week later, she was like, so I made the pitch deck, and I'm gonna send it to some networks. And then she texted me like a little bit later. She's like, my internet's not working. Can you press submit?
But had you done anything like this before?
No, this is our first series in this company.
Series.
We did just have a feature that just signed a distribution deal that we did make. That was our first project together.
Okay.
So that was really fun. It's called A Wicked Muse, and it will be out later this year. But then, honestly, we have a lot of projects on the horizon that we're super excited about that we can't talk about yet, obviously. But this was our first, I think, big project where it's just been the two of our heads together, with really no other creative source like input, which is why I think we're so giddy, but then so nervous, but so excited at the same time.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around the fact that like everyone that's like coming to the premiere, for example, is all there to see like us.
Sure.
Right? They're all coming because of something that we created, and that is like
super cool.
That's just that's awesome.
Yeah. So I know you can't get into many details, but do you think this could be the start of something really big?
Oh, 100%. And we're so grateful for this funding. With Bell Fibe, and when you get this kind of funding, it's local to the area. So all of these stories have a tie to Hamilton within them. But just with the amount of submissions that we got, like across Canada, from this one link that we were posting around Westdale, was kind of insane. So there's so many stories that we have right now that now this first season has happened, I would love to explore what it could look like on a bigger scale.
Yeah, this is definitely something that I think we can both see going bigger, as much as we both also want to focus on Hamilton stories, because that's where we have lived for the past little bit. It's very important, but the fact that it was able to span to she was from BC. We had a participant submit, and we didn't end up obviously interviewing her because she was in BC. Right. But that's someone where every time we're thinking about next steps for this project, we're like, man, we would really love to have her on the show, because her story was very we were like, we would love to tell that story, but we just couldn't because of location. So being able to open this up to, maybe Canada-wide or other provinces would be really awesome.
Could come maybe a season 2.
Yes.
Or season 3, or who knows? Let's talk a little bit about girl power, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of women on this set. How cool was that?
It was awesome.
It was actually
so
amazing.
Yeah.
Getting into this industry without connections is hard, first and foremost. But getting into it as a woman with no connections is just another layer on top of that.
Right,
And we constantly were talking about how we've been on sets before where we are like lead producers and we're talking, but then your voices are always somehow shrunken on set instead, and there's a lot of barriers that you face that are invisible, like not making as many connections, never hearing about jobs, or just things that I guess just compound on one another. And then getting to access the set and getting to choose and pick people on the set that we knew would not only amplify our voices and our participants was just so amazing. Like I actually, you know, there was a mirror that broke on set, and one of our PAs had broken the mirror. And normally I know, as being a PA in the past myself, if I broke one of the producers' mirrors that they brought to set, I'd be like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do.
It's the end of the world.
But panic. She walked right up to me and went, I broke your mirror, and then put it down and walked away with a smile. And I was like, yeah, that's fantastic. Like, it was just such a good energy to have. Everyone had a voice. Everyone had their say in things. And there's another scenario where we're filming mid-interview, and I think one of our grips dropped her keys in the middle of the interview.
Everyone froze.
Yeah, everyone
and they all looked at us waiting for us to freak out, like the director usually would, and we were like, I don't know, we're like, just keep talking.
Pick up the keys. It was like super empowering to like have, and it's also just super empowering to talk about afterwards too. Yeah,
I feel like there's almost a little bit of pride that comes with it. Film sets can be very daunting, especially like, honestly, it doesn't matter what role you're stepping in as, whether it's producer, whether it's PA, whether it's AD, whether you're an actor. As a woman specifically, as anybody, they're daunting. As a young woman, as a woman, that's terrifying, because what do most people think of when they picture a standard film set is like a lot of dudes. And so that's what we didn't want, especially when we realized what our show was becoming. We're like, well, we need to create a set where these women are going to feel not just us making them feel comfortable, but they can feel like the energy is welcoming to them. And that's what we really wanted. We wanted to make sure that the ladies that were with us on set were creating that energy, right? Because it's not just about necessarily women, it's about having that good energy as well.
So where did you find these women? Did you know them? Did you do a hiring spree? Where do they come from?
I, like, as working as the producer that works in pre-production, I have like a massive roster of people that I've worked with in the past that I know their strengths, I know how they work, I know the energy that they bring. And then also going through our lovely director of photography, whose name is Ray. Hi, Ray.
I love him.
He also knows a wonderful group of students because he's a teacher. So that's also something that we like to have on our set, is bringing students on so they can learn alongside like professionals. So just pulling from our, I guess, database of people that we know, and if we miss someone like on set, like we don't have someone to fill a position, we'll put out an open call and then I've done up to 30 interviews for one position on a set, just because you need to find the right person. And to me, what's really important is personality and energy, experience, and then what we have to grow and learn based off of that. And that's how I hire, and that's how we fill every single set that we do.
Yeah, it's something very important to us is making sure that people, like, it's not just about what's on your resume with us when we hire. It's like, who are you, you know, and if you don't know how to do this thing, are you willing to learn? Like, if you're with someone who does know how to do this thing really well, then are you willing to learn and take direction and take some constructive criticism, some feedback, and take it and improve? If so, then we absolutely want you on the set. It's not just about your experience necessarily. We weren't looking for super, you know, experienced, super crazy crew. We were looking for people that wanted to work with us.
High character, good energy. What's it like making a docuseries like this in Hamilton? Are there resources you can count on? Are there, you know, you mentioned funding before, is there a lot out there?
In terms of Hamilton, there are a lot of grants and opportunities out there. There's a lot of tax credit incentives that we couldn't capitalize on for this show's budget, but for other productions we have. But in terms of resources, every place that we filmed at, every place that we got catering from or lunch from gave us a tremendous discount because they heard what we were trying to do in Hamilton, and they honestly were just really moved and really inspired by it. So places like Digital Canaries, Millworks that just moved, and a lot of our food caterers, they just heard it and they went, you know what, 100%, we can meet you at your budget.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent.
It was really lovely to see how the community kind of wanted to work with us on this project, and that was something that was also important to us, is making sure that we were supporting our local community as well, and not bringing in like outside when it came to, we weren't filming outside of Hamilton. We did the recreations in Hamilton. We still filmed here, houses in Hamilton and all that stuff.
It was actually like pretty overwhelming. At first, we were going through all the normal resources to try to find a house to film a couple of our reenactments in, and I put up a post in a local Hamilton group, and I was like, hey guys, I need a house. Like, someone help us out. And the amount of messages I got in 30 minutes was so insane. It was so just overwhelming to see how helpful everyone was in terms of letting us go into their home and kick them out for 12 hours. Like, it was just so great.
Yeah.
What's your biggest takeaway from this whole experience?
Oh, wow.
That's a big question. I guess mine would be like, don't be scared to just try. Don't be scared to think that your voice shouldn't be heard. Because if I never went to Shauna and brought up, hey, this is like a crazy idea for a show, could we do it? This project wouldn't have happened. If the women weren't brave enough to share their stories, the project wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think mine would be to stay true to what you want to say. Like, at no point from once we were greenlit by Bell to now, we were never encouraged to change our story. We were never encouraged to, make the women's stories quieter or change something because it wouldn't, sit well with the audience or anything like that, right? So it's very important to us, and at least for myself, to, especially through the editing process, make sure that we are sticking with what we want to say and staying true to that, even if people are telling you to change it. Because that's them, right? What do you want to say? That's what's important here. If it's your project, what do you want to say? Follow through on that.
Yeah. Wow. Tremendous discussion. I can't wait to see it myself. I know I've seen the trailer, and that's about it, but I'm looking forward to seeing the entire docuseries. Congratulations. Best of luck on the 26th and with the premiere of this docuseries as well.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for checking out the Newsmakers podcast. A huge thank you to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you liked today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.